to Life Literature. Today, I thought of starting a new series of video lessons for you, focusing your attention on different genres of English literature. I'm quite sure that all who are very much interested in English literature will be benefited out of these lessons. My very first lesson for you is based on ballads. Through this clip, we'll try to find out what a ballad is, its origin, different types of ballads, different features of ballads, and some examples of ballads also. To get started with, we'll first see what a ballad is. Ballad is actually a poem. Sometimes it can be a song also. The most interesting fact about a ballad is this ballad contains a short narration within it, and it appears in stanza form. So if you come across a poem or a song in which you meet a short narration, even a part of a narration, it would become a ballad. It is as simple as that. But we'll have to go back to the historical scenario of a ballad, how it was started. The origin of ballads goes back to France, to 1200 and 1400, the in-between time of this. In Europe, this was originated. Originally, the French name for ballad had been ballad. There's no much difference in pronunciation, but if you see the spellings, you'll see the difference. So just check your spellings of the English word ballad and the French word ballad. So the word has a French origin. It was around 16th and 17th centuries that this formation, the new formation of this poetry, spread over to the European nations. That was the origin of ballads. And when it came to the European nations, especially to England and Scotland, such countries, this formation of poetry was basically sung or sometimes recited also among rural agrarian societies in England. While they were at work, they used to sing these songs. And later on, this practice had become a kind of a professional one, as there emerged a person called a balladeer, a person to sing the poem or to recite the poem officially. So this balladeer used to sing this poem or to recite this poem in front of a crowd. Therefore, while the ballad was being sung, there had been a live audience before him. And sometimes these balladeers not just recited or not just sung the song, they had started performing the song also. So this singing or performance of a ballad in front of a live audience became so much dramatic, and most of the people started to love this formation, since during those times there had been very limited ways of entertainment. And there onwards, this was spread in different formations throughout Scotland, throughout England, and I think around the European continent. Now let's look at the different types of ballads that we come across with all these alterations, developments that had occurred with time. Basically, we come across 4 different types of ballads: traditional ballads, broadside ballads, literary ballads, and modern ballads. So if we first focus on traditional ballads, We'll try to find out what they really are. A traditional ballad is actually a folk art. It had been the oldest of its origin of this particular genre. In these traditional ballads, the author is unknown. People don't know even now who had penned that particular poem or the song. Why was that? Because not a single person had written this, maybe a single person had written it, but nowhere it was mentioned. So, how did people come to know about this generations after generations? It was only through oral recitation. Generations and generations had used to recite these poems or used to sing these songs after by hearting them, and therefore now we cannot find out an author to these ballads. So the authors are unknown of these traditional ballads. But still, these traditional ballads are heard. Still, these traditional ballads are sung, especially on stages, of course, now, not among the agrarian societies, not among the crowds of an urban area, not like that, but these traditional balladeers nowadays are limited to stage performances. So that is about traditional ballads. Now let's move on to the broadside ballads. Broadside ballads are a kind of deviations from the traditional ballads. While the traditional ballads were originated in rural environments, rural societies, where agricultural society had dominated over the other societies, broadside ballads were very much restricted to urban areas. These ballads were, of course, printed on sheets, especially on one side of a sheet. And these printed scripts of these ballads were sold in local fairs and by the roadsides. They were sold to the public. And also, they had provided entertainment for urban public, and thus it had become the balladic formation had become highly commercialized because of that. That was the story behind the broadside ballads. Thirdly, the literary ballads. The literary ballads are the most recent ballads that we come across. In our study of literature, we meet so many literary ballads. These literary ballads are, of course, written by educated poets. And these writings quite often imitated the form and style of the traditional ballads. From the time of Wordsworth, I hope that you know about Wordsworth. I'm referring to that great poet, William Wordsworth. So, from the time of William Wordsworth, ballads have become an accepted genre of it. It's very much particular to mention that in 1798, William Wordsworth, along with another poet called Samuel Coleridge, published a collaborative version called Lyrical Ballads. Actually, this had put a very significant step across the Romantic era of English literature. So, we'll be discussing those eras somewhere in our series of this discussion. Next, we'll focus our attention on modern ballads. Modern ballads are, of course, the modern day songs that we often hear. There are all sorts of different types of modern ballads that we listen to nowadays. This new way of writing songs originated with the folk music movement. Using the devices of ballads, these people, that means the musicians and singers, they sung and they composed songs under the balladic tradition using different devices of the balladic formation. So they are called modern ballads. Okay, now let's shift to the fundamental characteristics of a ballad. How to identify a ballad? When you come across a poem or sometimes when you come across a song, if you are challenged to identify whether it is a ballad or not, what are the features that you are going to look into? That's so easy. We'll now get started to find out the features of a ballad. The first and the foremost is a ballad usually has typical four-line stanzas. There are four-line stanzas seen in a ballad. Secondly, the very much often rhyming pattern that we come across in a ballad is A, B, C, D rhyming pattern. And also, these ballads have themes of universal appeal. That means everywhere, all around the world, we would be, any reader would be able to appreciate the themes of the ballad. These themes would be very much common to them, very much familiar to them. That's why we say the theme is universal. Everybody is well familiar to these themes. So they have such themes in the ballads. And another important feature, an indispensable feature of ballads, is its colloquial language, the everyday language they use. And also, these ballads start abruptly, unexpectedly. That is also a very much interesting feature of it. And also, there are stock phrases used in ballads. For example, sometimes it may say, stock phrases means very much familiar, common phrases you almost hear every day. Sometimes it would be something like, once upon a time, likewise. And also, a simplicity becomes a very much focal feature of a ballad. Simple language, simple narration. Therefore, simplicity is spread all over, so the reader or the listener would understand it very well. And another basic feature of ballad is its repetitive lines, repetitive words, or repetitive phrases. Repetition, or you call it refrain. So these lines are repeated in order that the reader or the listener would easily remember it, would easily memorize it. So they could be sung along with the reader or with the balladeer, or even at modern times with the singer. And another feature is the question and answer format of a ballad. They appear in such a way as a dialogue is conveyed. Question is asked and the answer is given. Likewise, all the four-line stanzas consists of conversations, dialogues basically. And finally, because of all these things, that means the colloquial language, dialogue formation, repetition, all these features makes a ballad into a one whole dramatic piece. So it becomes funny sometimes, it becomes romantic, and sometimes it becomes tragic. Whatever it is, whatever the outcome of it is, it's dramatic. So the dramatic quality of a ballad is very much focal to its features. We'll now look at the often repeated or the universal themes of ballads. All these ballads, or rather, most of these ballads have love in variety of its forms as themes. Sometimes requited love, unrequited love, tragic love. So different formations of love is very much often seen in these ballads. Another common theme is betrayal, or sometimes murder, or sometimes revenge. Thirdly, sometimes in ballads we get magic and the supernatural as well. Also, some of these ballads depict stories of heroism, stories of battle, and stories of adventure as well. Sounds quite interesting, isn't that so? Now let's move on to some examples. First, we'll take an example from a traditional ballad called Lord Randall. It goes on like this. Oh, where have you been, Lord Randall, my son? And where have you been, my handsome young man? I've been to the wildwood, mother. Make my bed soon, for I am wearied with hunting and fain would lie down. So, this is a conversation, a dialogue between a mother and a son, the night son and the mother. Why the son had got late to come back home. So, this is the story which goes on. I have only taken the first line. So, if you're interested, you can just always search for it. Secondly, I'm going to give you an example of a lyrical ballad written by William Wordsworth under the name She Dwelt Among the Untrodden Ways. So, this is one of the famous Lucy poems that William Wordsworth had written. He had actually written 5 Lucy poems. This is one of it, one of the most famous. It goes on like this. She dwelt among the untrodden ways, besides the springs of Dove, a maid whom there were none to praise, and very few to love, a violet by a mossy stone, half hidden from the eye. Likewise, it goes. So, this is one of the famous lyrical ballads which discusses the beauty of nature, beauty of simplicity, beauty of humbleness, and beauty of isolation as well. So, that is an example I would like to share with you. If you are interested, you can always search for it. Thirdly, I'm going to show you one of the modern ballads. Of course, the one I have selected for you has a very sorrowful, pathetic historical background to it. This is named as Ballad of Birmingham. This is based on racism which had been there in America way back in 1963. So it was based on the bombing of a church in Birmingham, Alabama. This has always reminded me of the recent bomb explosions on Easter Sunday in Sri Lanka as well. Something very much familiar, something very much heartrending. So I thought of sharing the entire ballad with you just because of that. So this is how it works. Mother, dear, may I go downtown instead of out to play and march the streets of Birmingham in a freedom march today? No, baby, no, you must not go, for the dogs are fierce and wild, and clubs and horses, guns and jays aren't good for a little child. But, mother, I won't be alone. Other children will go with me and march the streets of Birmingham to make our country free. No, baby, no, you may not go, for I fear those guns will fire. But you may go to church instead and sing in the children's choir. She has combed all brushed her night dark hair and bathed rose petals sweet and drawn white gloves on her small brown hands and white shoes on her feet. The mother smiled to know her child was in the sacred place, but that smile was the last smile to come upon her face. For when she heard the explosion, her eyes grew wet and wild. She raced to the streets of Birmingham, calling for the child. She clawed through bits of glass and brick, then lifted out a shoe. Oh, here's the shoe my baby wore. But baby, where are you? So that's the modern ballad I have selected for you, which was based on the Birmingham bomb explosion in one of the churches during the Freedom March of Martin Luther King, who was protesting and trying to get freedom for the black Americans against the white oppression in America. So that is one of the modern ballads. And also in the O-level literature syllabus, we have got another modern ballad under the name Farewell to Barn and Stack and Tree. We'll be soon dealing with that also. So that's all about ballads. I hope that you have enjoyed, and I hope that I have enlightened you with some knowledge on ballads. So, till we meet again in a new lesson, have a nice time and enjoy your day. Stay safe, and while watching these videos, please don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.